Well, this is now my third attempt at starting to stream up. I had some problems with my internet before. Um, roughly, I'd say this morning, and when I mean this morning, I mean like 12 o'clock exactly. I filled out this application for a position with a company that for the first time ever, I got a referral. So somebody who works there was like, "Hey, you should hire this person," right? And that gave me like a little speck of hope. Um, And I kid you not, I fill out the application, which is pretty long, by the way. It takes me maybe like 20 minutes because it's one of those things where it has all these different steps and they want you to answer, just loads of questions that are based around like what type of way would you just stuff that a lot of these places have. Their applications can tend to be pretty long, especially the ones on the computer where they feel like they can just have you type in whatever for God knows how long. So I finish it, wrap it up, and I said, okay, well, you know what? It's been a pretty lousy day, but I can go to sleep knowing that I've got another one of these things for another company to consider. And I can feel a little bit better because I did something that is productive in terms of like it being a goal that I want to see, fulfilled. Like, hey, work somewhere within, I think maybe 15 minutes, if not even quicker. I get Because I filled out 2 of them. I get a pair of emails that says some of the effect of, "We thank you for your interest, and we appreciate you filling out our whatever, but we have decided to pursue other candidates." And listen, I filled out dozens and dozens of these things in the past. I have never had before previously, um, any of these places decline my application within minutes of it being sent, like, within 10 or 20 minutes of me sending it. They're like, "Oh, no, no, thanks." This is the first time that's ever happened. Usually, you won't hear anything back, period, or it'll be, like, a couple of days, maybe the next day. I've never seen it that quick. That's really crazy. I was like, "Yeah, real good this referral did for me, huh?" Oh, but, I was thinking about how, about maybe a year ago, there were these 2 content creators I used to watch, one more so than the other. And one of them was bigger than the other one, but he was getting made fun of by the smaller one for making a career out of being a commentator, and people donate to him, etc. And one of the things he said that always stuck with me is that his job is more fulfilling than that of the person that was making fun of him. I said, the sad thing is I probably would agree with that sentiment. Um Hold on, somebody is calling me this quick into a That's probably the quickest time I've ever seen somebody interrupt a stream before. Um, but anyways, getting back to what I was saying, I'm one of these people who probably would feel more satisfaction if I had some, like if I was just a full-time commentator on here. But even then, like I feel like you could probably I don't know, it might seem a little shallow for me to admit this, but I think if I did most positions, I would be content enough with the idea that you're doing this to, take care of yourself. Like the financial incentive alone should be enough for me to you know, be willing to do it. Usually what ends up happening is I'm more how do I explain it? If you're big enough on this website, generally speaking, you can pretty much put up any kind of video you want and people are going to watch it. And it might even only be like a tenth of your subscribers. So let's say like you have 200,000 subs, right? If 20,000 people at the very least watch every single video you make, you're safe. But what you have to consider is that with a lot of these jobs, and this is why we've been discussing them more often than usual, they're totally willing to take whatever they can find to have an issue with, and you could be there for a few days, for a few weeks, just some short amount of time where you're still like trying to get adjusted to the position. They know that you've never done stuff like this before. You were honest with them about that, right? And they'll just pull the rug from under you or start making these weird threats about if you don't improve by next time, we're going to let you go. And that's the type of stuff that like people don't understand. When I say doing the stuff online is more fulfilling, it's not even just, oh, I like recording stuff or putting up a video or talking more than physically like manual labor. It's because on here nobody can fire you. Like the closest you get to being fired is if you like break all the rules in the site and and the site gets rid of you itself, or if people in mass exodus stop watching you, which usually doesn't happen unless you're what do you call it, like someone who gets into some big major controversy or scandal. But I'm just saying that, like, in some ways, doing stuff on here is both more fulfilling and safer than attempting to work in the actual workplace. Because I've seen people when they watch someone that's big and that person makes a mistake or they, like whatever, they don't say, "Oh, I'm unsubbing from them. I hope they lose all their subscribers and we're not watching them anymore." You just don't see this like how do I explain it? There's not you're not like always walking on pins and needles is what I'm trying to say. Like if you work at a restaurant and you make one thing of food that a customer doesn't like, they can try to get you fired. But if you're on some website and you make a video that somebody doesn't like, usually people just are like, whatever. They just don't watch it. I'm just saying, it seems like from the experiences I've had with these places, um, they're really really quick to get rid of somebody, and I think that if depending on how large somebody is on YouTube or on any of these other websites that you can get paid from, like OnlyFans, for example, um, typically the same thing they don't have to worry about seeing happen if they're depending on how large they are as a figure on that site, because they're not going to see like a whole big giant enough portion of their supporters be like, all right, we're done with you. That type of stuff only happens in real life with these different jobs. No, doing stuff on here, like I would still never try it in the sense I would never like purposely just stop applying to places and only do here, but I understand why people are so attracted to it because real life jobs can be a big hassle and they can be like I said, it's not even a thing of, oh, you have to go up and get up every day and do like this work you don't like. It's the fact that these places will I think we've talked before about how they do like the red herring and they make it sound like you're so valuable and they love having you work for them. And then, no matter how good you do, they'll find something to get rid of you over or they'll like threaten you. And it's just like, I don't have that stuff on here. Nobody is going around just telling me, you better worry about this or whatever. Like I'm just saying, I don't like this, that type of stuff isn't going on with regard to the internet. You make a video somebody doesn't like, they stop watching you. That's one person out of 100,000, depending on how big your audience is. Um, So yeah, and that's one of the things people don't talk about when like making the comparison of doing work online versus doing work in, like the real world, that you don't have that constant um lack of safety, like purposeful thing where there's like a higher up who's just totally fine with getting rid of you whenever they want. Um, making all these threats. And I don't know, I just that's what has me like really not looking forward to getting hired by another one of these pricks, because I don't know, it just seems like they're so quick to turn on somebody. And it's like they'll know that you've never done this before. They'll know that you've never been involved in this type of work. And they don't care. They just have no, and that's why I said that, like, I always explain when we bring up the woman stuff, we're not even just talking about relationships. There are plenty of women in this world who are no more talented than you or I, and in some cases are infinitely less so. But if they're attractive enough, they can go on, a certain website I mentioned earlier and flash their stuff or get men to donate to them for just like taking a picture or whatever. It's just the point I'm making is they have a like because of the lengths to which a man will go to impress them or try to do something with them. You'll find that there are a lot of women that benefit financially from their attractiveness. And all this phone stuff is just so annoying. We're only a little bit over 10 minutes into this stream, and I've already been called by two different people. It's like, all right, I get it. Everybody wants to talk to me. First one was someone I recognized. Second one was some weird, I think it was like a bot. I get a lot of these like automated calls. So it's really sad that like you because we talked about this before. When you want something that's basic or regular or like a thing that you've seen, that millions of people have had, it becomes all the more depressing when you see like people going out of their way to try and make it seem like it's this sacred thing that you could only ever hope to have, and you need to do all like, I mean, when you have people who actually believe you're supposed to apply to dozens or hundreds of places just to get hired somewhere, right? Just to get a full-time 40-hour a week position. I think that's nuts. And that's why I said that like so much stuff could be made simpler if we did. And I don't want to, I know this phrase is like become a meme, but when you live in a society that takes things that millions of people have had and makes it more and more difficult, it goes to the point of absurdity. Um, Nobody should have to like we said this in the video, like you shouldn't have to ask out or talk to 70 or 80 or 90 chicks just to maybe get a date, but like no one should have to apply to 100 jobs or 200 jobs just to hear something back or to get hired by somewhere, and get hired in a way that's not like the thing that we've seen from these last two employers. They find you amusing for a while and then they get rid of you after like a couple of like within a month. um they're like, and that's why like I want to turn this to a political thing, but I always really liked the government jobs program that a lot of different progressives talk about having, because I'm so sick and tired of these stupid people talk about you're lazy because you don't have a job. You're lazy because you don't have a job. Because there are a lot of people that want to work, and these pricks that run these companies do not give them a chance. And I think if you're going to be entitled to anything in the US, it should be the right to have a position that you can work and actually be able to take care of yourself from. Like I even said before that one of the things that was going to make me quit the position last year was they just weren't giving me enough hours. You're getting like 8 hours a week. You can't live off of that. So what, you have to get two or three jobs just to make ends, like it's nuts. I remember one of my relatives was like, "Oh, maybe they're only using you part-time so they can later use you full-time. It's like, and then they got rid of me, like, I think the day after that or it's like, "No, we saw the writing on the wall. When you're barely using somebody, they're you have even less incentive to start randomly using them more often." That whole thing was just depressing. Like, now every time I see a help wanted or, now hiring sign, I'm just sitting there laughing. Like, sometimes I just, like, go around by like, not like, "Oh, I'm just purposely trying to see what they're up to now," but I've actually been in front of a couple of these places or in front of at least one of them since this stuff happened, and they do have a now hiring sign still up, which is just hilarious. I'll never be excited by the prospect of a place now hiring because every time they're now hiring, they're actually like, what's that scheme they have, hire to fire, where they hire people and like purposely have the intention of getting rid of them after a couple of weeks or a month to reach some quota. And that's why I said it's hard. Like, people will call you negative and they'll say, "Oh my God, you're making this stuff happen," cell phone, all the rest of that garbage. But it's really hard to be positive about stuff like this because you know, I like I said, I remember the enthusiasm, the excitement, the great joy I had in getting a position last year. And then, like over the course of it and trying to work as hard as you can, you're always coming on time, you're always doing what the douchebag boss tells you to do. Um, to not be given like what you feel are fair opportunities, and in fact, to be treated in a way that would be indicative of someone who they thought had done this type of work before when you told them you've never done this before. Um, and to not even be given enough hours to even survive because they won't, put you in there for more than a couple hours a week. It was terrible. It was awful. And, the same thing. That's why I say I'm tired of these remakes. The same thing repeated itself a year later. Um, and it's like they just look for anything to get rid of somebody over, which is why I said that it's hard to then look at these other positions and say, "Oh yes, I'm very confident one of these places will not only hire me, but not do the hire to fire thing where they try to get rid of you after a month or less." It's tough to be excited over this stuff. That's all I'll say. No, that thing from this morning deserves a world record. I've never seen a place where you apply and then in damn near 10 or 20 minutes, we are moving forward with another candidate. I was just thinking to myself, I wish the application took as short a time as it did for them to skim through that thing. Be like, nah, we're not using you. That's why I said, what was the point? There's a restaurant I went by yesterday that has like a thing where they're like, oh, on Tuesday we're having open tryouts or whatever for new applicants. I'm really not joking when I say that, like, and I really don't want to make this comparison, but I probably so if I knew a lot of these positions had the number of people that they have applying for them, um, I wouldn't even bother, period, because I know for a fact that they're not going to consider someone who has no experience or people that do. Um, like I think I remember I told the story of how I was trying to work for this bakery and the manager met with me and said they had 4 positions open and 40 people applying for them. And it was like, see, if I knew that or was told that before, I wouldn't have even bothered showing up here. And sure enough, I left and with the expectation that they would not reach out to me because it's too damn crowded and they already have somebody else they want instead. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I'm just saying that, like, when you have people talking about, like, oh, your lack of experience, your resume, all this other garbage, it's like, guys, again, external factors. Some of these places are not hiring, period. Some of these places have a bunch of people applying for one little itty bitty rinky dink position. That's why I say it's just oversimplification on the part of a lot of these like spectators and people just drawing conclusions that are, like half truths basically. 40 people for 4 positions. And I'm supposed to be excited at the prospect of getting hired by a place like that. Oh, I think I probably got that. I'm glad I was able to do that video. I've been trying to finish that script for a couple of weeks now, actually. So it was good to to do it at last. Because typically, what ends up happening is whenever I put something off for a while, it starts becoming like a back burner thing where it's like more dreadful to just get to it. But I powered through that one a few days ago. I said, "Hey, we're gonna finally wrap this up," and it was done. Oh, yeah, these I don't know, this stuff can get kind of tiring after a while, just like because I think I said before that it's hard to every day just go onto different websites or to the same couple of websites and just keep applying and applying and applying. Like it becomes very redundant, especially when you either hear nothing back or if you get an interview, it's like, it's for nothing. So um that's why I said that like from any standpoint, the online stuff is more fulfilling. But a lot of times it's not even just more fulfilling because of like the actual subject of what the position is, but also from like the standpoint of, if you want to get, I guess if the hiring process on YouTube is just making accounts, and it's like that's way simpler and way less redundant than, oh, let's keep applying to all these places that say nothing back every year. I'm not even joking. There's one place where I've had people say, you should apply there, you should apply there. I've applied there 3 times in the last 4 years, never heard a word back. You go on their stupid website, you fill out all the information, and they just sleep on your application. Yeah, I probably might fill out some more today, depending on how I feel, because I got a fairly good sleep yesterday. I actually was considering doing it, going back to sleep after stream was over, but I have this thing I'm gonna have to do. Um, it's just hard to get excited about a lot of these things, and I really do believe that when people call someone negative for just looking at basic pattern recognition skills that they may have, they're just trying to make you feel bad for like not going along with what is obviously not a good thing that's happening to you. And like not like falling for the same scheme, like, oh yes, this time it might be different. So all the red herring just kind of starts to fall out with these tricks that these places have. But yeah, I don't know, it's really hard to be one of these people that feels like they have to what's the way of putting it, like they have to make something on here, and it has to get like a certain number of views for them to keep afloat. And like I've always thought that was bad, right? Like, oh my god, if I don't get this many views, it's over for me. But if you consider it, there's actually a lot of places that are kind of like a lot of regular jobs that are like that too, where you have to meet like a certain quota. And it's not even like a thing of, okay, well, we have all these products, people need to buy it every week so we can keep afloat. Like actually having a certain thing that people need to buy every week or every month, or else you get like poorly evaluated and they want to lay off people. That's why I said that, like, sometimes when people talk about the stability of regular jobs, they don't actually show themselves to be that way. Like they're actively looking for ways and doing things that make the position not stable or even less stable than the YouTube stuff. Because on YouTube, you could theoretically have a bunch of people stop watching you. But generally speaking, if you're a larger channel, that usually doesn't happen. Um, so it just becomes this kind of irritating thing where you're supposed to sit here and just kind of hope that whatever position you get in the real world doesn't follow that same doctrine of, well, you guys didn't meet this quota that we have, so we're gonna say goodbye to you. It's all over. It's just sad that like these places, because like I said, I get where people look at the online stuff as unstable, but I wouldn't say either of the positions I had were stable either. Because again, they try to get rid of you after a couple of weeks and after blowing smoke up your behind about how great you're doing and whatnot. So I always remember that sixth day at the place from last year, after the guy threatened to fire me at the end of the first week, and how all the stuff that I had supposedly been slow on, because again, I've never done it before, I was faster with, and he was like, "Don't get nervous." And I said, "Idiots. Why would I not get nervous if you threaten to fire me? Like, who's going to sit here and be like, well, I guess I'm going to work this position today, even though this might be my last day, depending on me not being able to meet the requirements of my madman boss that knows I've never had a position like this before, but got so insane and angry over me not knowing stuff on my first day, he threatened to fire me." So I said, people just have no, like, they know how to make some really bizarre requests. Don't get nervous, new employee that I threatened to get rid of because I got so angry that they didn't know how to instantly do things that I knew they never knew how to do before I hired them. I'm trying to think of some other crazy thing. I think that's probably the most insane one. Like none of the stuff from the other one was as bad, but it was still kind of it was iffy. Um, what else? I had some other places that I applied to, and they do that thing where they're like, this application was not proceeded with, because they always have to tell you that they don't want you. Um, like I said, it's just the same old with this garbage. I'll probably do some more between today, tomorrow, or Monday, and then we'll go further into the insanity. But like I said, I'm just tired of like all of the accusations and innuendo, right? That people throw out at someone that's unemployed. Like you don't apply to as many positions as I've done and literally accept almost every single position that even hires you if you're somebody who doesn't want to work. That doesn't make any sense. But I think I said before that we have this bad tendency in general to effectively create reasons for someone's like lack of success and try to accuse them of things that are antithetical to what they're actually doing. So that's probably the reason that gets written about. I think I mentioned that there was like a place last week that I had an interview with. It was a delivery driver, and I've never seen like a recruiter make a position sound so unappealing. Like they were talking about the first thing he says when you get in this interview with him, this is a hard job. And we've had two people quit in the last 2 weeks and on their first day. So, you need to be able to make sure that you're able to sweat because you're going to be dropping off 300 packages per day. And you'll be working from 9 in the morning to possibly 10 at night, sometimes overtime. And when you go for when you're in your car, you're being recorded. And if you go and try to get a drink of water, that'll actually deduct from your points because that'll be seen as you wasting time. And I just kept thinking about that part. I'm like, so if I'm sitting around, because everybody knows how hot it is in California. If I'm sitting around driving this car all day long, and I say, man, it's been 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, sweating like crazy because you got me running back and forth. Hot vehicle as well. And I take this and I go, -10 points. Like, that's weird. But see, that's why I said that, like, I don't, it really does feel as if a lot of these places don't see their employees as human beings. And again, you want to make a comparison. If I did the online stuff seriously, or like was actually like big enough on here to where that could be like a real job, I know for a fact that there would be no one who would be mad at me for drinking some water. I mean, that's really bizarre. Like, I still can't believe that's actually a thing they expect you to do, is just sit there and like drive this hot vehicle around all day long. Oh, you want some water? Minus your points. Jesus. That's one position when they didn't send me an application, I was glad. Like I said, I'll do most work, but there's a limit to everything that I'm willing to do, and I feel like when you have a job that basically has you performing this extreme level of manual labor in addition to like having to go from this place to that place to like race against the clock, and it's like it's hectic and it's like that every single day. I just it's nuts. Like, you don't, that's not necessary. And I genuinely feel bad for the people that work for that place because I've seen some of them when they deliver something, not even to me, but just like in general. I've seen them pull up to somebody's house, throw the item out with their, super strength from lifting all this stuff, and then run and get back in their car and drive. They might ring the doorbell, and that's about it. I think there was a video of like some UPS driver who was like, um, go it was in I think it was in Arizona where he collapsed in front of this person's house. Like, he put the box down and then just fell out. And I was telling one of my relatives about that. They're like, "Oh, was he old?" It's like, no, it's Arizona is hot. Arizona is so hot that the former sheriff of, I think it was Maricopa County, was that Joe Arpaio, whatever that guy's name was, like, used to have the different inmates at the facility he ran sitting up in these shoes that would melt outside because of how hot it was. Was he old? There are plenty of old people that work and they don't collapse from putting a box down. That guy was young and he was tired, and it was a very ridiculous situation they had him in with no air conditioner in that enormous truck that they had him driving around in. And then you heard that stupid company. Well, our employees are constantly dropping stuff off, so an air conditioner wouldn't make a difference. Like, fine, just let everybody burn up. Okay. So I said a lot of these companies just don't care if their employees are like comfortable, or if they're even, in some kind of like safe condition. Like, I mean, you can look at a lot of this stuff. You probably would have, what do you call it? It could probably be like Alaska, for example, where it's just always snowing and cold and whatnot, and they would be like, "You can't wear a jacket," and they just run around freezing. Everybody's got a cold; they don't care. Seriously, these companies, like, that's why every time somebody says like, do your best and try as hard as you got. Like, I always just remember, like, these places don't care about you. That's why I turned down that one position, because it's like, you guys want me to memorize, what is that, like, two paragraphs worth of stuff before my first day even, and this is something that they didn't mention when we filled out the application, because that's how they roll. They always leave stuff out. But it's like, I'm gonna memorize this over a couple of days, come in there for a first day of work, and then get fired in like 2 weeks anyway. So it's like, what, it's not one sentence, it's not two, it's not three, it's like a whole page worth of stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is not worth it. We gotta bring that series back, California's excrement employers. Oh, yeah, I can't wait for next week and all the wonders that are gonna come from that. I don't even know who this guy is. That number just goes back and forth. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 6, and I go back to 5. It's weird. I guess that makes sense because I always have to remind myself that people have really limited attention spans. To where like you have videos that are sometimes hours long, and the average view duration will be maybe a minute, 2 minutes. So that makes sense if you just think about it in the classical sense of YouTube having a lot of people that watch it that uh, can't be bothered to watch the whole thing. And you'll have videos that are only a couple of minutes long, and people still only watch like 1 minute of it. It's really weird. Yeah, these places are just run by some really insane people that they don't care about anybody that works under them, and that's why I said that like it's hard to be excited to be around that again. Um, the other video is probably going to be finished this week as well. I think so, depending on how because I there's some stuff that could happen this week that I can't foresee or that I can't like entirely estimate what the deal is going to be. Um, but I should be able to make it this week. I'm not going to say for sure though. That's what my estimation is. Oh man, yeah, it's I don't know, the video from last night I really like because somebody will say, "Oh, you really have to respond to one comment with this video." It's like it's not even just it being one comment; it's just how it's like these people are always looking for ways to blame the guy, and it gets kind of absurd when they admit they don't even know what happened, but it must have been something dumb that you did, because they like to leave out external factors. So that's why I felt like it was necessary to take it. And it was just me making a bigger point in general, like just about how you can't make someone like you. I've had plenty of people that tried to speak to me platonically, like different guys that wanted me to talk to them. I said, look, I'm not interested. So, it's like if I don't want to talk to them, I don't have to. And usually the person that is not interested in speaking with you is someone who is what's the way of putting it? Probably not going to tell you why they don't want to talk to you. It is what it is. But at a certain point, you have to be able to say, all right, well, look, I tried. They're not interested. Let me go on to somebody else. So I said, sitting here and just constantly demeaning yourself and going, oh, I must have done something wrong. I must have made certain stupid mistakes. I don't see how this helps anybody. I really don't. Man, that number went down. Oh, that's crazy. Streams are some weird things. So I was just glad to take that comment and laugh at it because part of me thought it was funny just how much it contradicted itself. The other part of me was like really annoyed by it because, like I said, it seems as if there's always going to be these guys who every time you talk about this stuff just appear out of the woodwork. Never seen them before. You don't know who they are. And the number one thing they have to say with repetition is, "Oh, you must have done something wrong, or you shouldn't be upset over this." Because we had another guy that did something stupid too a while back. It was like October or yeah, like last year, right? Where he like put up some comment that didn't even address any point I made in the video and started like talking about the woman is doesn't have to be tied down. It's some old weird garbage, but it's like they barely even respond to what the video's about. So I said like a lot of this commentary isn't even people like addressing what you're that's why I really do believe in the theory, and it's not something I can provide with proof. It's just a thing I think is the case that almost every time someone doesn't agree, they usually either didn't watch the video or they maybe watch like a snippet of it. Because like I look at these comments and they almost never address or like anything you had to say or almost very little. Like they could take that same comment and write it pretty much anywhere else, and it would you would just think, okay, well they saw somebody else's thing, which we know for a fact people do spam comments. I mean, I remember this one topic I discussed. It was about somebody some kind of like things where someone was being accused of stuff, and there was another person who made a video on it, and the same guy left the same comment. The second I saw that, I got rid of it on my channel because I was really annoyed. I was like, hey, look, it's not necessary to spam stuff. No, it's just sad that people like refuse to have an actual civilized, non-insulting discussion about these types of things. Like just they for whatever reason they can't just sit down and talk to each other like human beings and go, hey, this is my opinion, that's your opinion, etc. Because I said in the video, I'm not against having a discussion, but I'm not going to sit here and argue back and forth. Like you can discuss something without it turning into a debate. Because like I said, I just don't care enough about this to like be on the circuit trying to argue back and forth with people, about why they should or shouldn't talk to like it doesn't bother me, if somebody else wants to sit up in that cycle. As far as my favorite line is concerned, it's probably the part where he's like balance the scales, and I said, we should already know at this late stage in the saga that isn't happening. I mean, that was hilarious. Just someone still needs to be reminded, like, and that's why his comment was so weird. It's like you admit that one group has all this power and leverage, but then you're talking about balancing like it's that's why I said it's just weird. People need to write stuff that makes sense. Like it's cool, everybody is grammatically efficient, but the logic needs to be as good as the writing itself. They have to be able to actually write something that is not just like a series of symbols or like just I want logic that's good. Like I said, if somebody made a video I disagreed with, I either would go piece by piece or I would say I agree with everything except this. That's what I always thought was so weird about these romance guys. Like they will take one sentence out of a video that they found questionable or didn't like or whatever, and just argue with that. And like, so did you agree with this full uh 15-minute video except for that one sentence, or what like let's not miss the forest for the let's not mistake the forest for the trees, or mistake the trees for the forest, however that saying goes. But I don't know, just I just think it's so weird to like have someone make a full video and then try to argue with them over one sentence or over like a brief part. It's weird to me. But that's why they're them and I'm me. And we some of us do certain things and others don't. I was watching some of the Tournament of Power last night. I haven't seen that arc in full since it aired the first time. I still have like good memories of what happened though, as far as like I can remember it entirely or most of it. Um, I don't know, like the way things are currently going, it is hard to do like a full arc rewatch. But I was just thinking about how that arc is like 55 episodes. And what so it's like people would always say that Z, right, was this dragged out show. Oh my god, it takes so long for anything to happen. Which is something I don't agree with because I sat there and watched like the whole Saiyan saga and I think it was like 2 or 3 days. Like it's really not that long. It's 35 episodes. But I was thinking to myself, like, the Saiyan saga is a big fight, training for a year, and then another big fight that's even, that's like against two people, 7 versus 2, right? And the tournament of power is a little mini tournament, some recruitments, episodes or whatever, and then the actual tournament itself, which is supposed to only take place over 40 something minutes. So in my opinion, because one arc takes place for a much larger period of time for a whole year, wouldn't it make more sense for the Saiyan saga to be longer than the Tournament of Power? And that's what drove me nuts. It's like the same people who will say they prefer Kai cutting down that arc to 13 episodes over its original 35 are the same ones who will watch the Tournament of Power, which is what, 4 times as long as that Kai version, and even 20 episodes longer than the original, and they'll have no problem with its length. I just think that's so weird. I don't know. It's like people retroactive. Like that's one of the reasons why I didn't really like Kai that much, especially the English version where they changed some of the voice actors for no reason. Because it's like I never really saw Z as being that long, and in comparison with a lot of other stuff, it really isn't. And usually, the only thing where it's kind of like a slog to get through is probably the Goku versus Frieza fight. But that's like what 20 episodes out of 200 something. So that's really not even a majority. Like it's one of those things where because all this stuff up to that point is much quicker and is going by like at most it's like 2 3 episodes. Um, when you get to that fight, that's where it starts to feel a little dragged out. But that still is like all the way toward the end of the arc, and I mean, every version of that fight that is official is long. It's multiple episodes in Kai. I mean, like there's almost no version of that fight. Even in the manga, it's long. It's like a whole volume. So I just think people are too I don't know, it's just they're so open to trashing Z for its length, but a lot of the stuff that's come after it is just as long, if not longer. I mean, I don't know, I feel like one of the stories makes sense to be 30 episodes because it's over the course of a whole year, and the other one has no reason being as long as it is. Now, rewatching those early Tournament of Power episodes, I was just kind of like amused by how excited I was back when it originally aired. I was like, "Oh man, uh, they have they have this tournament where Boo actually gets to fight his first one, since Battle of Gods, which wasn't even like a real fight. It was just him getting smacked around by Beerus. Uh, they have Gohan get a fight. They have, like I was really intrigued. Oh man, they're talking about Krillin like, getting stronger. And I don't know, it just feels it's just kind of funny to watch those first couple of episodes and then like know what happens. Like Boo's not even gonna be in this tournament. He's gonna just go to sleep and they're gonna bring back the same villain we saw from like 2 arcs ago who got this big power boost. Um, and then Krillin's going to be the first one eliminated, and so on that damn review stand for like 30 episodes. It's just kind of depressing to rewatch the beginnings of the arc because I said before that I remember when the Universe 6 tournament was like an ongoing airing thing in Japan and how they had Goku get eliminated really early on, and I just couldn't believe it. Was like there's no way they're going to keep him out of the rest of this tournament. Um, And sure enough, they brought him back. But I do think the Tournament of Power would be way more interesting if either he or Vegeta got eliminated early on. because they're the two big, like supposedly strongest fighters, so it would add more suspense. Even though personally, I would prefer if they got rid of Goku early on because he's the one that started the whole tournament. What better irony would it be for him to like have to sit out most of it? That's it's one of those things those writers don't consider. What else was I gonna say? Speaking of the Universe 6 tournament, it's so funny how like there's several episodes I like, but the beginning and the ending just kind of slog for me. And you get like I like Hit as a character, even though I think he's horribly underdeveloped. Um, but he has like really cool powers, nice design, whatever. The problem I have with him almost entirely is the fact that like so he does the same stoic thing that other characters do, but if you look at like let's say I think that was the 22nd Budokai with TN, like he actually has like agency, as in you see him being like brutal, even and you see like elements of his personality before he fights Goku. And he actually has like a character arc over that tournament where he, starts to turn good after seeing the dishonorable things that are done to either assist him or around him by Master Shin. So basically, the 22nd Budokai, or I guess the Tien saga succeeds where the Universe 6 saga fails because its villain or its like main competitor to Goku actually has a character that we get to see before they fight. So he's not just standing around like this the entire, for like 80 or 90% of the arc. With Hit, because the way that the tournament's structured, where it's 1v1s, where it's like it's not even like regular tournaments of like these two, then these two, and then these two, because it's structured that way, he gets to Smackdown the person that just beat three people, which instantly makes him less likable for me because he's the one that takes Vegeta out of just winning the whole thing altogether. Um, and then he gets this weird fight with Goku that I don't really think is that great either. So basically, and I remember somebody that was reviewing it said the Universe 6 tournament was a poor man's version of the it was either the 22nd Budokai or the 21st of either the second arc of Dragon Ball or the Tien saga. And I admit that's kind of true. Like your I don't well, your main antagonist in the case of Tien was someone who we got to see the personality of, um, and actually develop right during his multiple fights before Goku, and also, like see him like kind of like changing over the course of the arc. With Hit, all he does until he fights is this. It's just so weird to me, like that. I don't know. I just think that's lame. Like, but that's why I said that arc is like something I don't really plan on. I don't know. I just feel like it's it's harder to find stuff I like that's Dragon Ball related. That's not a game that's come out since Super started than it's ever been before. So from Super, the only arc I'll probably rewatch is the Tournament of Power. Oh, and that little like the 9 episodes or 8 episodes between the future Trunk stuff and the tournament, where it's like all the piece episodes where it's just like a bunch of people acting normal. And there's like no major overarching thread. I like those episodes as well because they're character focused. You have some people who say that they're filler, and I remember like being very annoyed by that because Super doesn't have filler. It doesn't have a manga that it's trying to catch up with. So I probably will only rewatch that portion of the series. It's so weird too, because if Super was just that one, like the Tournament of Power, and then what's the other part of it? If it was the Tournament of Power and those 9 episodes before it, that show would be a lot better to me. That's kind of interesting how like for me, GT got worse as it went on, like after the baby arc, where I felt like the concepts were interesting, but they either weren't given enough time to really develop properly, or they just sort of fizzled out. Um, but then with Super, it got better as it went on. Like it's like the reverse version, effectively. Um, like I don't know, like the concepts in GT are way more engaging and interesting just as ideas. Like, hey, take two androids that are the same person except one is a clone, and then fuse them together and get the stronger fighter. And then like, oh, take all the past villains and bring them back. It's like, that's stuff that I really was intrigued by, and I just think the execution in that arc's case, and in the case the one that came after it, just leave a lot to be desired. I mean, in an arc where you bring back you bring all these shadow dragons, and their thing is, we are the manifestations of the abuse of the Dragon Balls over the years. This is like your final arc of your trilogy of series that began with the original series, and to not use any of the characters to fight those shadow dragons besides Goku and Pan was sad. Like that. I don't know. It's just because a lot of people like Nova Shenron, for example, it would have been really cool if instead of having Piccolo stay deceased, they actually brought him back and had him fight him, because Nova's brought back from the was created by the wish that for Piccolo's immortality, which still affects the Piccolo Daimau's wish for immortality, and that still affects the son. That's why Piccolo never gets older, because of his dad's wish for eternal youth. I shouldn't have said immortality. I'm in an error there. So that would have been a cool fight. Um, Again, I just have to go through and look at all the other wishes. But I don't know. I just think that arc would have been so much better if we got like 7 or 8 of the Z fighters to fight. Like look at Oob. They have him merge with Boo, and for the rest of the show, after Baby's defeated, he just doesn't do anything, and he's like fodder, and I don't know, just it's lame. Like I really I because it makes what Goku did at during that period between when Z starts, when GT started, when Z ends and when GT it looks like he did it for nothing, because Oob can't beat any of the major threats or hold them off any better than anyone else can. I still can't believe that like he's in the first episode of GT, like he's introduced with Goku, and then he just like disappears from the show for that whole first half of it, to where you would be forgiven if you actually forgot he was even a thing. Because as a character, he's really not important. Like he's introduced in the last episode of Z. He's in that first episode of GT, then he vanishes all the way until like the closing episodes of the Baby Saga, and then he's got like background fodder appearances in the Super 17 arc. And I don't even remember if he's in the Shadow Dragon. I have to go rewatch or look it up, but I don't even remember him being there. So he's a really minor, and that I don't know, I just think that's sad. Like, these writers, they whack Goku off so much. Like, Goku, he's our man. If he can't do it, nobody can. Yeah, it is interesting to think about like rewriting arcs of that series that I'm not that great a fan of, because the Super 17 arc could have been amazing if it was just like, maybe instead of it being 5 episodes, it probably would be better if it was like 10 or 13 or 20. Um, and if Let me just think off the top of my head. I know I said before I would have so like the part at the end of the Baby arc where Piccolo gets, like where he passes away from being on Earth to make sure the Black Star Dragon Balls don't get used again. I would have that there still, but the twist would be that we actually get to see him go in the other world and like be in, the afterlife, right? Go to HFIL or whatever you call it, Home for Infinite Losers. Um, After that, I probably would have him like just touring around, seeing all the past villains, whatever. And then he sees his dad, and then like maybe they talk to each other. His dad is like still obviously evil. We're not going to give him some redemption arc. I mean, he's the original like irredeemable bad guy from the series. If you ask me, like all of the villains from Z follow stuff from King Piccolo, where they have like henchmen, and if they don't like Frieza has them as well, and like they're just like that. They off some of the main characters, just stuff like that. But like they're talking to each other, and I think what happens is that the dad, like because I remember like King Piccolo to me is a not an interesting character, but one of the things that does separate him from some of the other villains is that he actually does care about his children, which is why when Goku kills Tambourine, he comes to go see who is the murderer. Same thing with I think it was Symbol. Um, so King Piccolo will be like, I'll merge with you so you can stop this threat to that accursed Earth. But I do this only out of my fondness for you, like to Piccolo, and then they merge, and then they go back to Earth and fight Super 17. Um, but outside of that, like there's a bunch of rematches that we don't even get. Like in GT, you get Nappa like blowing stuff up, and he doesn't even talk to Vegeta. He just tries to attack him like an idiot, and then gets blown to pieces, in seconds. It would have been really cool if in bringing Nappa back for that brief part, they actually have like Vegeta and Trunks together, and Trunks is like, "Hey, who's that?" And Vegeta says, like, this guy is a reminder of my past or something. Like that's what I'm saying. That like bringing back old villains isn't even just about nostalgia or any of the other garbage that people go around throwing out. It's actually an interesting way of getting some character growth and some reflections by the cast in terms of how far they've come. Like there's actually a reason for this stuff. Yeah, I don't know, it's just it's sad that people they always I don't know, it's like if you bring back anything, it could be an old character, it could be an old series. They always write it off. And like I said, Super had a lot of potential, but it got squandered because they have this weird obsession with Goku. Um and they're not really doing anything that I would say is really groundbreaking. Like I think I mentioned before that I really would have liked if one of the focuses of Super had been Vegeta's relationship with Trunks, because like present Trunks is a fairly underdeveloped character who's a less popular version of future Trunks, the one everybody loves. And Super could have been a good opportunity to actually like show the ways that he differs from his future counterparts and make him kind of likable as far as like this kid who wants to become stronger so he can fight with his dad and be there to help him. And I like I said, they just dropped the ball. They couldn't. That's why I said that like people always like they always mistake me for wanting to get rid of Goku and Vegeta. I said I'm more upset by the fact that they hog all the screen time versus like wanting to get them out indefinitely. But there's plenty of interesting stuff you can do with those two characters that they just don't bother with throughout the entire duration of Super, throughout all of GT. Like there's stuff that you can do with any character that's been around for as long as either of them have been in either, like in just in that series, but they don't seize on those opportunities. I mean, again, GT could have had the same thing with Vegeta and Trunks, and we really don't get to see them interact at all, almost period, where you've got like the one episode at the start of the show you know, Vegeta drags Trunks to go and help find the Black Star Dragon Balls. Then by the time they finally get back to Earth, Vegeta's possessed, and so is Trunks, and they act like like he acts like his minion. So that's what I'm saying of how Super really could have been blazing some new territory by exploring a relationship that we really didn't get to see a whole lot of in Z. Like present Trunks doesn't become a kid or at least someone that can talk until the start of the Buu saga. And most of his screen time before Vegeta's sacrifice against Fat Buu is him like being in that tournament where he's not really talking to his dad. So it's just one of those things. And then I have to remind myself by the time Vegeta even comes back into the plot, Trunks has already been absorbed by Buu. and is asleep for the rest of the show. So it's just sad that like people will say like you're a hater, but I really wanted Super to succeed. And like I don't do arc rewrites or even like talk about wanting to do those unless there's some part of me that thinks there's a thing that works there. And if it was just done a little bit differently, or even if it had some major overhaul, it could have been great. So much wasted potential with this stuff, I tell you. It's really a shame. No, for the Shadow Dragon arc, I probably would have so like I probably wouldn't just do straight up one-on-ones. And what I mean by that is if this is your final arc, you're probably going to have a little bit of suspense. And like the suspense of that arc was that the last dragon's Sin Shenron merges with the other ones and becomes Omega Shenron. Instead of that, I probably would have um what's a good way of putting it? I probably would rather you have like somebody fight one of the dragons and they get away for a while, like they just disappear, and then they want somebody else encounters Sin Shenron and starts fighting them, and he's like losing or like he's not doing that well, but then the other dragon that was like being fought before gets found by somebody else and they have like a little brief fight or fight again, like a rematch or fight somebody else. And then that's when Sin absorbs all the other dragons and becomes Omega. Because if it's done that way, at least it's not formulaic. Like everybody gets at least one fight. I would prefer if there's a couple of people who get a few more fights than others. So that would be my preference. No, I just think there's like so much like there a lot of times if there's something I don't like and it's part of a series that I do like, generally speaking, I try to rewrite it or at least in my mind think like how could this have been something that's more appealing to me? And I really do believe if they had gone with having more of the characters like actually be there for the Shadow Dragon stuff, it would be a better arc. But I don't know, it seems like the number one issue for me with GT are like character usages. Like, you know, the show just has this thing where there's a lot of sequences where someone can do something, and I don't think they utilize them properly. But I feel the same way about Super, and my rewatching those episodes last night has only convinced me more of how botched a lot of their efforts to use the cast were. Like I think the show would be better if it actually struck some kind of balance and didn't just have characters, participate in the tournament and they don't do anything and they fight like one person. Like I even said before that I would have preferred if they had Yamcha in the tournament instead of TNT. Yamcha was actually funny enough the person that there was some kind of poll where he was the one that people wanted to see join the most. And it's not because I like him more than TN. It's simply because I don't like the way they used him during the tournament to where I would say he has the worst performance out of anybody from Universe 7. Um, and at least if Yamcha's there, it's like you can get some funny character interactions that you can't get with TN. Like he's just a more, I guess, comically entertaining character. So that would be the reason for wanting him there instead. Because like no one they're not going to sit there and hype him up and go, oh my god, he's going to take out 10 people. It's just one of those things where I really believe if they had used him instead, it would have been a more fun thing where I wouldn't be as frustrated. Because with Yamcha, people ask for pretty simple stuff. Like he gets, a fight here or there, maybe two, three. And that's something that was really doable if they let him, if that tournament had him in there and he was the first person to lose, but he took out like two, three people with his I mean he has a whole bunch of moves, Wolf Fang Fist, the super the spirit ball where he's like moving around with his finger. Nobody would be complaining. They would say that was pretty cool. He got several fights. Best usage of him since probably the 22nd, that was the 23rd Budokai, the Piccolo Junior saga. I can't wait to go on DB Wiki and find out I've been calling the wrong tournaments by the wrong numbers and look at and just like feel dumb inside. But I'm saying that like a lot of people don't have the like people who are bad faith actors want you to believe that there's these fans that are just constantly angry and disappointed over and over. And it's not true. Like a lot of the stuff that we ask for or that people request, I'm not going to speak for others, but just a lot of the stuff that some people ask for really is not that unreasonable. And I just think that there's like this group that likes these shows so much that if you ever criticize them or say, hey, I wish they could have done this instead, they're gonna just like jump to their defense and tell you that you're reaching and you want too much and oh my god, you're never satisfied. And I just don't believe that because I liked Superhero. I say it was an enjoyable movie. I eagerly await seeing it again. Um, but I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't enjoy Cell Max. I think he was a boring villain. I wish they would have used regular Cell instead. I wish that they would have used Krillin more in that film because his relationship with Gohan when he was a kid was very important to the plot of Z overall. So that's I'm simply saying that I would have preferred having certain like just changing up some stuff, but like the general plot of this thing centered around Piccolo, like one, finding out about the Red Ribbon Army coming back. I thought it was nice. So people who say that when you rewrite stuff, you're never happy with things, they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, we were talking about a rewrite of the Boo saga, and it was going to keep in all the stuff I like. I like that Vegeta sacrifices himself, except in the version I had, he actually it's not for nothing because he takes Boo with him. Um, and then when Boo is in the well, no, I'm not going to go into that detail. I'll save that for a stream where people actually write stuff. Um, but like I like that part. I like when Hercule like actually gets development as a character. He's not just this one-off gag. Um, but even then, it's like I just get rid of stuff I think is unnecessary. Like all Gotenks ends up being is a fusion component for Boo. And I would rather instead of using this character that only shows up for like 5 minutes and doesn't matter to the plot overall, I would rather that if they have any like kid character, they would just only have Trunks and develop him. Like after Vegeta's sacrifice, I want him to go. Like, why can't my dad come back to Gohan to like say, hey, your dad, you know, passed away and he came back, so why can't mine? Oh, it's some spam. But you get the idea, right? That like a lot of the stuff I would rather they have is generally character driven. Um, and sometimes I add in some fights, sometimes I get rid of some fights. Like I would really like in a Boo Saga rewrite to have Piccolo versus Deborah, where it's the Demon King versus the act like the person that we thought was the demon when they first showed up. That'd be really cool. Oh my god, what are these people doing? Oh. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, I would have that fight. I would have well, I'm still like rewriting it, but the point is there's certain stuff I would change up. I definitely would have the final battle with Kid Buu be something that's resolved by, you know, a move that's not a failure like the Spirit Bomb. That was real funny being on convention. Everybody was like, "Oh, this that fight with Kid Buu was great because everybody got a part to play by putting their hand up in the air. I was like, okay, yeah, like here's the thing: you're writing the final arc of Z. This is and not even just, but like the final arc of the original manga. After this, there are no more stories. And I just feel like if you're gonna write a finale to anything, you need to make it feel complete and entire and satisfying. And I think because in my version, what I had happen was that I don't even think it was Goku and Vegeta. Basically, Kid Buu is defeated by having them make a wish on the dragon, like to revive some of the people that were killed, but then also like teleports. Um, so like it's not going to be Goku and Vegeta, they're the only two that are there, but just like in this version, let's say that they're the two because they were there in the actual arc. So it's Goku and Vegeta, and they wished to teleport Gohan, Krillin, Piccolo, Tien, Yamcha, 18, um, Trunks, like basically all of the major fighters since the original all come together to like I don't even know what you call like 9v1 Kid Buu. And they're all like throwing all these different attacks at him and whatnot. And the reason I wanted that type of fight is one, because I think there should be some special like focus put on characters that can actually like battle and contribute in that manner. Um, that's why I said it makes sense to me to have that group fight over like two people and then sticking your hand in the air. But the other part of it is that like um it brings it like in a way it kind of brings things full center. Like Z starts with a group fight. It's Goku and Piccolo versus Red. For the end of Z, I'd like a group fight that's even more people, right? 9 people versus Kid Buu. Because it ties into that same thing that you can still just because somebody is the most powerful, as it's like it doesn't automatically guarantee they're gonna win. So I really would have preferred if that had been the direction they went in. Yeah, it's I don't know, like I guess what the problem is with the Buu saga for me is that it's really difficult to watch that as the final arc of of Z, or I guess of just the original manga, because it's like all like the ending of it, right, has all of the cast basically reduced to like a panel of doing this. And the only two people that really get to do anything, or the only four people I should say, are Goku, Vegeta, who's a character who didn't even show up until like a third into the story. Um, Another character who didn't show up until like literally the previous arc, Hercule, and all the way at the end of it at that. And Boo, who showed up this arc. So I just, referring to Fat Boo. So I just feel like they really like Toriyama really missed the mark. And again, the thing is, this isn't just one arc or some random. This was supposed to be the ending. Like after this, there's supposed to be nothing else officially, and I just find myself very unsatisfied with that finale. Like I don't think it's a good conclusion. I mean, it's I don't know, it's just my opinion. No, there's a lot of stuff that I would have to like a video rewriting the Boost saga is probably gonna have to be like an hour long, if not even longer than that. And that's even if you're just doing like a rough because always have to remind people the Boost saga is the longest arc in all of Dragon Ball. It's 96 episodes in the show, 98 chapters in the manga. Um, the chapter thing might be debatable because the super chapters are really long, but out of the shows, it's still the longest one. It's so crazy how for a long time I convinced myself that like it was about the same length as the Cell stuff, but it's even longer. Wow. So the thing with the Cell stuff is that it never to me it never felt that long because you go through all these different villains, and then when you finally get to your main villain, you still have the two previous ones there, and like he absorbs them, and like I don't know, just I've always felt like there was more stuff going on that was kind of linear, like it was going from point A to point B. The Boo Saga just feels like this mess. Like every time I watch it, it's like, oh, okay, this person is now deceased and this is the villain. Oh, except now this other person is going to beat them, but now this villain is a good guy, but then oh, they got absorbed. So now this other person is the villain. Oh, this other good guy came back and now he's going to beat him. Except oh, now this villain's got a new transformation or form. So that's good. Like it it just went on and on and on, and it's like I had a hard time even being invested because by the end I was like, can this just be over? I don't know. I think if I were just going off of that arc at the start, like the first 40, 50 episodes, I probably would be much kinder to it. And it's when you start getting into Super Boo's forms and having to go on train for nothing. Um, that's probably where it gets points reduced. Um, that's why I said that like if that arc had ended with Gohan showing up and he like is beating Super Buu and then Super Buu powers up with absorbing Gotenks and Piccolo, and then Gohan like defeats Buu, but then also like maybe he finds a way to like he tricks him into thinking like, hey, I'll spare your life if you let go of my friends. Um, which we know is something that like if Toriyama wanted to, he could make Boo do that on command. I would be much more satisfied with that arc because you had a character who you put all this emphasis on, right, actually succeed. And I prefer that over, the Earth getting blown up and the whole planet. I don't know. It just seems really anticlimactic. And I know people will say, "Oh, subverting expectations," but I that's one like in that instance, it really pissed me off because you spend so much time seeing it, and it was the same thing with the Moro arc where they had Vegeta training for like 9 chapters to beat this guy. He shows up, he's whooping his butt, and because we can never have Vegeta be the main villain, and in this case, I think it was very deserved because all the training he did. He gets beaten by Moro after he gets his new form from absorbing his henchmen. And again, it's like I look at something like that and it annoys me because of all the time that we spent seeing him train. And that's why I said that like I don't know, it feels like a lot of these Dragon Ball fans are completely fine with just having their time wasted. Like Gotenks as a character's main function, like his overwhelming contribution to that whole arc is to get absorbed and be a power up for the bad guy. Same thing with Piccolo. So I just don't understand like how anyone looks at it and says, "Oh yeah, that's a very satisfying final arc for the whole series. We don't have to watch anything after that." So I said the Boo Saga is just really irritating. There's a lot of stuff I like. There's a lot of stuff that gets on my nerves. I still lean towards saying I like it, but I liked it a lot more when I was a kid than as an adult. No, when those critical thinking skills get involved, you'll be surprised how limited your impression of certain stuff will be. But I don't know. I just feel like there's so much like you to really explain why that arc just feels so frustrating. You'd have to do like a review, and you'd also have to do a rewrite. Because, like I said, the 3 versions of Boo, I'm all right with. I'm a little bit irritated because Kid Buu shows up even further down the line, and I think he would have been a lot more welcomed if he had some kind of like foreshadowing or something. Um, but I'm most like I just get irritated by the character, like just the stuff they do with the different characters. Like I don't like that they have Gohan doing all this training for nothing. Same thing with Gotenks. I don't like Vegeta just like sacrificing himself for nothing, and the only thing that's accomplished is removing him from like a whole third of the arc. It's just it's hard to really sit there and enjoy that stuff when you know that they're always looking for ways to just pull the rug from under. And I don't know, I just it feels like a lot of the stuff there is just a big waste of time. Yeah, it's just really unfortunate that stuff is this way, but I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Mm. Yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of potential in the stories that people write, and I think typically something will happen where they'll just kind of lose sight of it, or it doesn't go all the way to its fullest extent. But in an arc that's that long, I really think it would have been entirely possible to juggle like having a main villain with Boo, and then like a secondary antagonist with Deborah, who's independent from him and is kind of like wishy-washy, like you don't know which side he's on. Like you know he doesn't like Boo, but you also don't know if he's gonna be like he's like this morally gray area. This one guy said, "Oh, Deborah is just Bobity's lackey." It's like, well, Bobity himself is really not even in an arc that much. He's gone after, he gets killed by Fat Boo. So it would have been really interesting just to kind of see, because what I guess what I'm trying to convey here is that the instigators of the stuff that happened in this arc are Deborah and Bobbity, and by the time you get to the halfway point, neither of them are even a presence in the story anymore. Um, to where they're kind of like that arc's version of 19 and 20, where it's like some like two characters, the boss and the person under them, who initiate everything, and then they just kind of fizzle out. Like I'm telling you, there's a lot of parallels. Deborah is like the one, like the secondary person that's under the other guy is killed first because Deborah and 19 bite it before Jero and Bobbity. And Jero and Bobbity are executed by the same person that they revived or otherwise are the reason for them being here. That's really crazy to think about. Two arcs back to back where there's like a starter pair of villains, and the leader outlives their main henchman just to get killed by someone else that they think is their henchman that they revived or brought back or brought into the story to begin with. That's really interesting. That's some, I don't even think I noticed that before now. Like that's actually a thing that both of those arcs have in common. Some starter villain that by the end of it isn't even there anymore, or by like the midpoint isn't there anymore. Because I really would have liked to have seen Jiro interact with Cell. Like some of the games do that, yeah, but like what, because Jiro's thing was that he wanted revenge on Goku, and it would be really interesting to see the guy who made this ultimate android to get rid of Goku, which he actually does succeed in doing. Be like, hey, look, I didn't want you to blow up Earth. I didn't want you to become this evil thing that just wants to. Like, I find that extremely fascinating. Like the idea that there's like a little bit of a moral gray there where he isn't against killing, but it was a specific person, and like destroying a whole planet is just out of the question for him. There's a thing on TV tropes called "Even Evil Has Standards." Get all these dumb notifications, but I thought that would have been really interesting if they had it that way, where he doesn't want to. How do I explain it? He doesn't want to see his creation destroy all of what has been created just throughout, just referring to the earth and the people that are there. And it would have been interesting to see Babidi interact with Kid Buu and like be afraid of him and whatnot. Um, I don't know, that's what again, that's why I said that Toriyama and Kishimoto, the Naruto creator, they're very similar in that they have this thing where they can make a villain that's either got a really good design or they have like some interesting backstory, personality, etc. Powers, stuff like that. That's like that has something about them that I think is interesting, but then their usage of them is pretty abysmal, like just not good whatsoever. Um, I don't know. It just seems so weird that you would like. I don't know. Deborah is I think I said before, he's like my favorite non-main villain from Dragon Ball because I just like his design and his powers and the whole like aesthetic of the Demon King. But I just wish that he had been either, of course they would never have like made an arc in between the Cell and Buu saga, but I wish they had like there was some way they could have explored him more than just having him be, a fight against. And yeah, the games are doing that now, but like still, I wish in the manga proper they could have had him be more than just a fight against Boo and like just to show how strong he was and like a fight against Gohan to show that he was weaker than he used to be. That would have been really cool if he actually got to, be more than that. Yeah, I don't know, it just seems so weird to have like a villain that is that interesting looking and then with that type of backstory, like hint of that. And then just throw them in the trash for this big pink bubblegum monster. And yeah, I know it's subverting expectations, but sometimes that stuff does get annoying. Like they could have really done something interesting there by having two factions of bad guys, where there's one who wants to stop the other, and the other is just kind of this thing. But then I guess maybe what ends up needing to happen is that um because I remember we talked about this before, me and this other guy, that like if Vegeta does get rid of Boo, then there's no reason for the Bora to like team up with the Z fighters. But then the way of writing around that is um to have Babidi get the Dragon Balls and wish for Kid Buu to like to be there like from the start. And then you can have him just kind of like what's the way of putting it? There has to be some reason because you can't just have him come out and just pull out this big enormous thing and just blow up the earth. There has to be some like in story reason for why he's not able to do that just yet. And DeBoer would find out about that and be like, oh my god, there's another Boo, we need to team up, and that could be like the catalyst for that. And you could still get Super Boo by this other method I was describing. That'd be kind of cool if it was two Boos versus each, which we did get in Z with Fat Boo versus Kid Boo, but I think it would have been really cool if um they had actually like made it to where, because Super Boo's supposed to be the intelligent one that when he before he absorbs Gotenks and Piccolo and go on, he's the one that is, I don't want to say has more humanity, but like if I rewrote him, he probably would be someone who is genuinely a villain or a bad guy because he's got like he's evil Boo if he absorbed Fat Boo. But I would have it to where Super Boo probably is just sort of what's the way of explaining it? He's like you because the problem is if you have him and Kid Buu both just as flat out bad guys, then it's just going to be the same character, and one is an adult looking Boo and another one is a smaller one. So you probably would have to make Super Boo more sympathetic or not as bad as he actually is. So that would probably be the one roadblock. That's why I said writing is something that is hard, and I really would because Toriyama, like everybody knows, wrote by the seat of his pants. But I really wish for that final arc, he had been a little bit more focused and just kind of just thought about character usages and like for a final arc, hey, how do we make this person fully come circle or go in a way that we've never done before? I mean, you look at Piccolo, like every arc of Z and every arc since he got introduced in the Piccolo Junior saga, he fights people, right? He uses powers. In the Boo saga, he does none of that. Like he stares at Shin all nervous and afraid and whatever, and then he gets turned to stone. Doesn't even get to fight the guy that turns into stone. Then it looks like he's killed Bob, and he's like, "Oh, cool, he killed a villain for the first time since the Saiyan saga." Uh, then that turns out to not be the case. Then he's like the babysitter for the Saiyan kids, and he's like instrumental in teaching this technique, admittedly. But then after that, all he does is stand around until he gets absorbed to make the villain smarter and strong. Like I don't. That's why I said that like every character that came back that was introduced before the Boo saga, with the exception of Hercule and Vegeta, they were done dirty or done in a way that I am not satisfied with. All of them. It's just really sad that that arc is that long and we get the same stuff, like just all this messy stuff. Like if you gave me a 96 episode arc and you said, I want you to use these 10 or 15 characters in ways that are befitting of how we have seen them in the past, I could do it. Because it's not like it's a movie where it's like 2 hours. You've got hour after hour to do all this development. So I was really disappointed by that, but it's one of those things where I'm not too surprised. God, it is hard to stream. You've got a phone that's going off every 5 seconds because people are. It's not even people. It's like automated calls, and then there's this thing on this other website. It's just like, okay, we get it. All right, we understand. We know. Um, what other part would I rewrite? I would probably have. I don't know. I just think like if you because in the proper version of this stuff, you have Piccolo and Krillin get turned to stone. I think it would have been really cool if they got unturned to stone by Deborah, like because he was looking for allies to fight Boo. And then, like after he reveals his true evil nature, um, they fight him together. Now they've been trained in hyperbolic time chamber, whatever, and they beat him, and like they get revenge. See, because the reason Vegeta, for example, in the Frieza saga is like a really well written character is because he's interesting. And generally, if he gets defeated by somebody, he kind of gets like the last laugh. Like he gets beaten by Zarbon. He gets his Zenkai boost. He comes back and beats him. He gets beaten by the Ginyu Force. But when they're after they get defeated by Goku, he kills them. And then after he gets his boost, he's able to like clobber Jace and then get rid of him. Uh, and like what I'm saying is, even when he takes a supposed L, he pretty much directly or indirectly comes back to haunt whoever has made him take it. So, for example, even though he never gets to beat Frieza, like his power up just isn't enough. The thing about like, oh, the Super Saiyan, etc., that still comes true just with Goku. Um, and he gets to see like he gets to see like him in his transformed state after he gets revived. So it's just one of those things where what's a good way of putting it? I think if they had Piccolo and Krillin beat Deborah later on, them getting turned to stone by him would be considered okay because he would what's a good way of putting it? It wouldn't be as bad if they got to come back and actually do something to him, and I guess redeem themselves in that manner. And like I said, you look at I mean, you can look at Determined Power, for example. Jiren beats Goku, and then Goku gets to come back, and if he doesn't beat him outright, he's like beating him, and like he ultimately is part of the team that eliminates him. So what I'm saying is, I think people are more susceptible to a character. I hate using this term, but taking an L or otherwise not succeeding. But if it's done in a way where it's cathartic to see them succeed later on, I guess that's the way I would phrase it. I'm still mad about 18. Like she had like of any of the characters introduced in Z that aren't Gohan or Vegeta, I just constantly find myself irritated with regard to how they use her. Like she's stronger than pretty much everyone that's not a Saiyan or Piccolo at all times. And even Piccolo is like debatable. Um, I mean, you saw what they did with 17, where he just appears out of nowhere and now he's stronger than Piccolo. But it's like it, it's almost like the Boo arc is tailor made for her to be more involved, but they just never get around to it. Like her husband gets turned to stone, and you would think, oh man, they're gonna like have some way of notifying her or telling her, and then she's gonna go and fight Deborah, either with Gohan or after he does, or at some other point. Nope. Um, like with the original Boo, considering that like in the series proper, Vegeta just doesn't take him out at all, just takes himself out. I think it would have been really cool if, because at this point it's important to remember that Vegeta's deceased, Goku's gone, Gohan is presumed deceased as well, which I don't like as a plot point. But just the three major Saiyans are not there, right? So besides Gotenks, and when I say Gotenks, I'm really just mean the fusion because she is stronger than Goten and Trunks. At their strongest, she was able to fight them when they were Mighty Mask. But besides Gotenks and maybe Piccolo, she's definitely the strongest character alive for that whole duration between when Fat Boo is like wreaking havoc and when Super Boo goes and like gets everybody on the lookout. So I just think it would have been so much cooler if they had her and Gotenks team up against Fat Boo. And then that doesn't work, and then like or maybe they find, because that it would make it more believable if they're able to get away, because like one of them is healthy enough to to like fly away or something or make a distraction. Um, but then when you get to Super Boo, see the thing that gets me is that like the arc really turns like with there's a phrase called "women in the refrigerators." The arc does that with Krillin a lot. It's a male example because like you turn the stone, near death experience. And it takes him out of the story. He survives that, then gets killed later anyway, and it's off screen in the manga. But it would have been really cool if they had her survive, like like actually being able to get away. And when Gohan is fighting Super Boo and he's beating him, and then like Super Boo absorbs Gotenks and Piccolo, and all hope looks lost. She shows up after doing all her little training, and or we could have established that she does train, like after the cell stuff, to not have this happen again. But anyways, you could have her and Gohan team up to fight Super Boo after he's absorbed the others. And the way that probably would be resolved is that you might have, because I don't really like Gohan getting absorbed, because I feel like if he's not the one that outright beats the like Boo, he should still play some important role in his defeat. So I'm just saying that like with each form of Boo, or and not even, but excuse me, with seemingly almost every major villain that's able to fight that's in that arc, um, it seems as if there's like a tailor-made reason for 18 to want to fight them, and she just never does. She just sits on the lookout, you know, highest strongest fighter besides Gotenks and Piccolo for a solid third strongest character. No fights after the tournament. Just sits on the lookout, just hanging out, holding her daughter. Oh God, that is really frustrating. So I said the character usage in that arc is really obnoxious. I mean, a lot of people wanted Cell to determine the power, mainly if I include myself, because they had Vegeta train while he was in Otherworld or whatever. But Cell is someone that trained from when he was created. I mean, like Perfect Cell specifically is someone that is like Goku and his friends, or specifically is like Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Tien, and that he always trains. So if they wanted to, they could have brought him back and be like, all right, he's someone who's been trained. Actually, what would have been really cool, um, is if they had brought, instead of using Tien, who again I like, but they didn't do anything interesting with him, they could have used Cell in his place, and we could have had the first meeting between Cell and Frieza confirmed to us to be during the Tournament of Power. That they're both in Otherworld, but they just never encounter each other because they're like in these cocoons. So that would have been really interesting. Having two villains on the good on our like teams, and you're worried. I think probably what would happen is that, like, somebody could argue that Frieza would be the one that people like having Cell there would undercut Frieza. Um, and I guess maybe that's why you don't want to do it. But I don't know. It just seems like if they really wanted to, they could have found a way, especially after the tournament. Like, you know, instead of the Broly movie, you could have had Frieza go to Otherworld and get Cell out of there. I'm just saying, there's a lot of stuff that they could have done. Like, I really do wish we could see regular Cell again, but I think they're probably going to mess it up somehow because that's what they like to do, find ways to ruin things. I'm gonna go get something to eat because I got to go up to this place in about an hour. So I hope you enjoyed the stream. I don't know what happened to people's ability to type, but whatever.